on
This call
program
is
or
being
something like
recorded.
weird like that.
Right. Yeah, I did have a good point, Rachel. I just started the interview just now because we're saying some really good stuff regarding the Flyers, and I think this will be helpful to other people that will be listening. Yeah, I did have some strange responses. People did open up, and one guy briefed me. I've been knowing him my whole life, but he said, "Man, when you show up, some weird people showed up. Like, so he told me like some older white dude and some other people were coming around, and it looked like they were going. He said the way he put it, it was like people that were not from the neighborhood were coming into the neighborhood, and then they were trying to find other people who were associated with the neighborhood to go further into the neighborhood. And basically they were paying people $30-$40 at a time to follow me around with red shirts and brights on the cars, and they were telling the people that because I was on like government assistance that the job was to watch me to make sure I wasn't doing anything educational or work related, but the people had no business cards. They had no official way of presenting themselves. It was just all through word of mouth, and that was one means as to which they would network through the neighborhood. But they couldn't just go out. Like, this is an area where I know a lot of people, and so I've even seen it to where there was some people they would not approach because I knew them so well, but like 99% of the people they would approach, 98% of the people that would approach. And the neighborhood that I live at, I don't know any of these people. There's some people who live in the neighborhood that I've talked to a few times, but none of the people really actually know me. They just probably have seen me while they were, watching me on the internet or involved in, whatever they're involved with assignments. And this is like a bigger area. This is a more spread out area. So there's like a lot of different areas in the area that I'm at, but in the area that I'm talking about where the people told me, all those people have been knowing me my whole life. So these are people I know from like elementary school. These are people I know from the fourth grade and stuff. And, these are people like we slept over each other's houses growing up and stuff like that. So I'm just like, just tell me what's going on. Just tell me what's going on. And sometimes they would tell me, some of them, sometimes they wouldn't. But then there's a lot of drug users in the area. There's a lot of crack smokers in that area. And so oftentimes I would bribe them with like $10. And I'd be like, look, here's $10. You want to get high. You want to smoke a rock. I mean, man, you're going to get a rock. For a crackhead to get a rock, that's a big deal, right? So they're just like, fuck that. I'm going to tell you what you want to know because I want to get that blast. And, like, I'd be like, look, the dope boy's right there. Like, I'd say, look, the dope boy's right there. I'm going to make it. He's going to give you a rock if you tell me what you're talking about. I know you want that. Don't you want to get high, man? And, like, they start telling me stuff. I say, look, dope boy's right there. I'm going to give that dope boy $10. He's going to give you that blast. And they want that blast. And so they would tell me. And that's one way I started figuring it out. Another way would be when I was in more elaborate neighborhoods, like neighborhoods where there was a lot of money in the neighborhoods. I would just walk up to people and start talking to them. One time I walked up to a guy. I knew he was doing gang stalking assignments. And I asked him, I said, I said, hey, did somebody pay you to do this? And he shook his head. Yeah, he looked like he was scared. And that's the last thing I want. I didn't want him to be, I don't want people, like, I never approach people trying to intimidate him, but the guy was smaller and I'm like 6'5", I'm 6'5". And so.
Like, are you a part of this?
Yeah, I think he was a little intimidated. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because he could tell I wasn't scared of him. And so I think,
yeah.
I think me not being scared kind of intimidated him a little bit. You know what I mean? And so that wasn't my intention though. I was just like, hey, does somebody pay you to do it? And he was very polite. I was polite with him, but he seemed intimidating. He shook his head, yeah. And I said, well, who did it? Who showed you? And then he looked back at the guy behind him, and I was like, and he gave the guy up. But then he said, oh, I'm just joking. So he actually looked back to the guy in the distance, and he actually gave the guy up that got him to come do the assignment on me. And
did
so
you
that
go
was
talk
another.
to that guy?
No, I didn't. I didn't talk to him. I should have though. I should have, looking back, but at the time, I don't know. At the time, I just had kind of. This is when I first started getting started with this though.
I'd be a little spooked though too. So.
Yeah, like I wasn't scared, but this is when I first started. I was kind of surprised that the guy told me. Yeah, I was kind of shocked. Like it was almost like that was sufficient. You know what I'm saying? It was almost like that was sufficient enough for me to be like, okay. I was like overwhelmed. I'm like, oh my God, they're telling me what's going on type of thing. And, I was like still wet behind the ears and stuff. And so that was like a victory. That was like a moment of victory for me on that day. There's been other people who I would say, I would ask them, I'm like, hey, why are you, like I'd be like, hey, do you have a favorite color? And they'd be like, yeah, my color is blue. I was like, why are you wearing red? And like I'd get into it and I'd start asking them, and sometimes they wouldn't admit to gang stalking me, but they would say that they were on chore, like they were doing chores for people and stuff, and I would start asking about neighborhood watch groups and stuff, trying to feel it out. And sometimes I'd get some answers that let me knew they were involved with stuff, but then there has been, let me see, what's the closest anybody's ever gotten? Oh, one time I was over at a woman's house and we were hanging out, and she told me flat out that she had got some sort of message through Facebook or something, and the people were telling her basically it was some sort of like, I think it was like a questionnaire thing or something, but they were telling, it was communicated to her somehow that like I was mentally unstable, so she had to follow me around with a red shirt and check on me or something. And so then I started telling her about gang stalking and all that stuff. And so there's been some people who have slipped up. There's like more instances too. I'm trying to think. There's like a few times, that people told me about. Like I've had a gang stalker, a woman email me that told me. I always tell that story about the 1-800 number and all that stuff. But when I'm out walking, yeah, some of the people would talk about it while I'm out walking and talking to them. But and I'd go through various communities and stuff. Kind of like, you ever heard of a magazine crew?
Yeah.
Almost like a magazine
Like
crew.
the
Yeah, 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 almost like that. Almost like that, And you know what I mean? Like I'll just be like, and I noticed one thing, Rachel, this is what I really noticed is if you go to a setting that you've never been to before, you got 72 hours. You got 3 days until the neighborhood has been acclimated enough to stalk you without further command, meaning it takes the liaisons and it takes the neighborhood watch group, or it takes the stalking networks, because sometimes there will not actually be a community watch group doing it. Sometimes it's just stalking networks basically that arrange for it to happen. There's different liaisons that come in. So sometimes the cops will not officially be involved through a neighborhood watch group. Sometimes it'll be just a regular neighborhood watch group doing it. It really depends. But I noticed you got about 72 hours. So within 72 hours, everybody in the neighborhood will be acclimated, and the stalking network will have briefed enough people, and they will have found out who they want to play what roles, and then there will be small adjustments from there on out. So from there on out, different people will play different roles.
That's why like a fugitive on a run type lifestyle right now sounds so appealing. Like if you want to seriously just try and get away from it, like it's almost like I want to get an RV and just go from town to town to town, so that they can't really like get a grasp on my whole world.
Yeah. Yep. It takes them 3 days to set up shop, and so if you keep it nomadic and you keep it pushing, they won't really get to dig in, so to speak. But so what I usually used to do was within the 72-hour period, I would just bombard the neighborhood myself. And see, my whole style back then was I never offered, like, I began to offer people to do odd jobs for them while I was out in the community, because I wanted that proactive, positive vibe going. I didn't want any confrontational vibe. I wanted the like positive community leader type spirit. And so that went a long way, because I would offer people opportunities to move furniture for them, to help them do yard work. I would do different things for them. And then as I'm offering that, I would also tell them about my work with community stalking. And this is a point in my life where I was contacted by an actual human rights group that wanted my opinion on community stalking and gang stalking whatsoever. So this is a time in my life where I used a lot of even though I was being repeatedly and viciously stalked the whole time, I still maintained, somewhat of a outgoing image to help people. And so I would try to bombard the neighborhood quicker than the gang stalking network, but the gang stalking network was financing the street terrorism. They were financing the harassment. And, depending on who they go and contact, Some people are more willing to do more than others. Some people are degenerate, depraved, deranged, filthy, egotistical, low-life pigs who will do about anything for a couple dollars. Then there's some people who have standards, who really won't really won't do what they're being asked to do. They kind of know how to mold and manipulate people and take advantage of people. And some people will only go so far. Others are just, like trash on the street. They'll do anything for a couple dollars. What would you do for a Klondike bar type deal? And so, as I had to go through that trash, I got to learn different techniques and different strategies. So within that 72-hour period, my goal was to try to reach everybody I could as fast as they were doing it, which is very exhausting. Like to talk to all the people outside and tell them about gang stalking, and it teaches you to perfect your craft. So as you're passing out flyers, you're becoming the real community watch program, and the criminals are trying to network through the community to bring you down. So it's a fascinating experience. I would recommend it to anybody. I had done it so much. I went from that to business cards, and then from business cards, I went to just walking up to people and speaking. And, I didn't have any fear at the time. I still have no fear. Every now and then I will go around and just talk to people about it, and it's a really cool experience.
What was there at any point in time where you were fearful? Because I was curious about that. I know it's a little off topic, but
no, I wasn't. I wasn't.
Your approach to this the whole time.
No, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't scared. I'm gonna be honest with you. I wasn't afraid, and I'd go and talk to gang members and stuff, and I would talk to everybody. I'd actually go talk to drug dealers and gang members about gang stalking in areas that I didn't even know where I was at, and I didn't even know them. I wasn't scared, and then I would go talk to people at Fortune 500 companies, executives. I looked at it like I'm important. I'm important to the community. What do I need to be scared for? I'm not a part of a criminal street terrorism network. I'm saving people's lives. Like I'm an asset to them, not a negative thing towards them.
I feel that people who are that enjoy figuring things out, whether that be how to take apart a computer and put it back together, or hold on one second. There we go. Take a computer apart and put it back together, or anything like that. I would think that those people would be less prone to be terrified, like yourself, because that's how I've gotten through some of it, not being afraid. Like you were saying, like I have a little bit less fear than most people. It's just because I'm kind of fascinated by how this is all done. And in the very, very beginning, I was under the expectation that someone would come along and tell me. So I was just waiting for that person, like all excited, like, how do they do this? I thought it was a prank at first,
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, back to what you were saying.
Right. Well, you might be a little intimidated and a little scared, but if you are, that's okay. Me personally, I wasn't, because I just, I had been, you see, certain things had happened to me before I got gang stalked, which were a lot more troubling than gang stalking. But once gang stalking occurred and I realized I was gang stalked, I was relieved. Once I found out, I'm like, oh, this is all this is. And so, it still was a bad deal, though. It wasn't nothing nice. I'm not trying to make it sound like it, it was still pretty rough. But, I mean, it was a fun experience, to be honest with you. And if you do feel intimidated,
people who are interested in, how things work and everything, just like their mantra could almost be fascination over fear. Like if they do want to check out and, visit us in the Midwest and try out our program, just keep saying that to yourself, fascination over fear.
Right, yeah, fascination over fear. Because I remember one time I went to a Burger King and my food got drugged and I was real sick and I felt like I was passing out. and I didn't know what was happening. I went across the street to the police station. I told the police that I was drugged eating at the Burger King, and the police told me basically there was nothing they can do about it. And so, I left the police station and walked down to the hospital, had my blood taken, and then the hospital reported to me that they didn't find anything within my blood that they didn't find any drug element in my blood or whatnot. And so I was relieved, but at the same time, the nurse told me, she said, we don't know what to test for. We don't know what they put in your blood. Like we just don't know. So if you do not tell us what specifically to test for, we we don't know what kind of drug is in you. So I was a little bit relieved because I was kind of anticipating they were going to tell me some horrible diabolical drug was in my system, but at the same time then it became even more scarier, like, oh my God, now I'll never know what they did to me. And I didn't let it get me down. I went in and got my jump rope. At this time, I was listening to a lot of Muhammad Ali motivational videos, and I had met Muhammad Ali when I was around 6 years old. And so, it was like I went to go shake his hand. He gave me a hug, and so I kind of used some of the inspiration of Muhammad Ali to work my way through the gang stalking. And even though I was drugged, like I kept that motivation going. I actually went back to jump roping and stuff like I was doing before I had got the drug in my system. And then I ended up in one area of town that, basically I was in the hood, and I just started telling people how I just got drugged. Like I was like, yeah, they just drugged me at the Burger King over there, and I told the police about it. And I just started telling people what was going on, and I hand wrote out some flyers and gave it to the people and stuff. And I was just walking around, talking to people about the gang stalking and stuff like that, educating them on it. And, that was a big learning experience, and then the next day I would go to another area of town, and then another area of town, another area of town. And, I just kept it moving like that. Like, I'll be damned if some street terrorist, criminal syndicates or something are going to stop, the life that my God gave me, They'll never be able to do that. So, but it can be intimidating, though. I'm not going to lie to you.
Outlook to have.
Huh?
I think that's a really good outlook to have.
Yeah, most definitely. I was never scared, but I was angry. I gotta admit, I was not scared, but I was frustrated. Who likes going out to eat and having their food drugged? I mean, this was a cowardly thing to do, and so, that's just a testament to the criminal activity that you come across while you're being stalked by gang stalking, So it's almost like a thing to see. When I first started going back to the food drugging in the spring of 2016, I was in Phoenix, Arizona, and I got my food drugged while eating at a restaurant. And the only reason why I perceived that happened to me is because, I was actually going through the gang stalking, and I wasn't scared. I was approaching people on the streets, and they had some. They actually had. It was actually a street gang. It was a street gang. It was a Crip set that was in the Phoenix, Arizona area, and they were doing gang stalking assignments. I mean, I started talking to them, and immediately there's a well-known Crip gang member on the History Channel known as Barefoot Pookie, and I knew who Barefoot Pookie was from historical research on the Black Panther Party, and I began speaking with them, and they weren't it wasn't even a hostile thing. They were just doing gang stalking assignments on me, and I started talking to them, and then our conversation naturally drifted into a historical aspect. Like, it just naturally happened, and the next thing you know, I started educating them on COINTELPRO of the 60s, the rise and fall of the Black Panther Party, and all these different things. And, they gave me their phone number. They were very kind. They were very nice and stuff like that. And then I realized, I'm like, wait a minute. I can take this gang stalking stuff anywhere, and it doesn't matter what's going on around me, because if I know how to tell my truth to people, the way they take it, if I know how to tell my truth to people in a certain way, it will be received in a way like what you put out comes back, And see, I realized I don't have to hide. What am I gonna hide for? It's the street terrorists that hide. So it was a glorious day. Like I was able to show gangbangers how there are real street criminals out there manipulating the scenario.
And I think that's kind of funny that like you get drugged and then you go like immediately and talk to a drug dealer. It's like your intuition was almost telling you, well, maybe the drug dealer knows what I was dosed with. He's got knowledge on this.
That's funny. But you can get into a situation where that was at a low level. There's other times where I would be at libraries getting gang stalked. I would go into a library and get like 10 books, and I'd just sit there and read the books, and everybody in the library would be participating in it, and college students would be involved in it. And there was a couple people who were attending universities, and I would bring up an intellectual subject to them. And we would go into it like, what were we talking about? Um, I think like one of them, what was talking about? There was one subject like one of the guy he had some books on like astrophysics, and I started talking to him about it, and then our conversation started going back and forth, and he told me what university he attended, and I started asking him about like had he ever heard of organized stalking, had he ever had a problem with stalking on his campus at the university he went to, and he said no, and then I started recommending authors to him, and people who had done writings, like I think Dr. John Hall was one of the first people I brought up, even though I actually never read one of Dr. John Hall's books. I just read some of his blogs. I brought that up, and he was like, "This guy's a real medical doctor." I was like, "Yeah, he's a real medical doctor." And so that sort of interested the university student that there's an actual medical doctor who's being gang stalked. And so, that was another example that I've taught myself about how you can blend in with different sorts of people where, you can talk to university students about organized stalking and share with them that it could be going on their campus. Then you can be walking the streets and literally talk to people on the streets about gang. Like you can go into different areas of civilization and talk to different people about gang stalking and give it to them in a way in which they can interpret it that it applies for them, even if they're involved with it. Like that's sort of what my beat gang stalking thing was about, was reaching everybody you can and educating anybody you can.
I mean, I do think that, like, for some people who start out fearful, which I mean, I test this myself, because, like, yeah, when this all first started happening, I was so scared. Like, I came close to shitting my pants. I don't even know how many times during this whole thing. And I think, like, going through this process will pretty much eliminate any fear that I have. Because once you understand it, there, there's that fear of the unknown. And once it's known, that fear, like, subsides quite a bit.
Mm. Now let me ask you a question. What would you have to say yourself to somebody who's participating in gang stalking?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't know. Like, to someone who's participating in it. Um, I think I would just like take it like ask them if they know what it is, and kind of just feel out for myself if they know what they're doing or not. And maybe,
Mhm.
and my thing that I would want to really make a point to do is clear up any misinformation that were fed or given.
Right. So starting with the disinformation would be like the main source of the conversation as to the reasons why they were participating in stalking you.
Oh yes, I would definitely I would love just curiosity factor to like see all the different things that they were bribed with to do this. Because like you said, like some people do it for a pack of cigarettes, and some people would probably take $200, or like like paint them a picture of a better lifestyle or something, you know.
Right, right, right. It's kind of strange because I get different sorts of vibes from different sorts of people. Like sometimes I'll come across people who are participating in the gang stalking, and they don't really seem they actually seem to be very friendly and cheerful and happy. And I'll be wondering, damn, how did it get explained to them like that? They seem pretty, like sometimes they'll seem happy to see me. And then there'll be people who act really like isolated and scared and weird, or sometimes they act angry. Like, I guess it all depends on the personality of the
I
person.
think the friendly people would freak me out more than the unfriendly people, just because
Yeah,
of the personality changes that I've seen in everybody around me. Like, 'cause like my friends and family just act like everything's more fantastic than it's ever been in its entire life. What's wrong with you, Rachel? And so like I would kind of project that onto them. I think if someone was overly chipper to see me, I'd be like, "What shit storm is right around the corner?" You know, it'd freak me out.
right, right, right. Yeah, you come across different sorts of personalities, and location is everything. If you go to a certain area, you get certain sorts of gang stalkers. Like if you go into a Chinese community, you will get Chinese gang stalkers. You go into a Hispanic community, you get Hispanic gang stalkers. So if you go to an area where you go out into nature, like we've been talking about with the off the grid movement, where people are hiking and camping and having a good time, it will, because of the logistics and the geographical change, it will reduce the gang stalking greatly. But at the same time, it will elevate the consciousness of the people we come across who are participating in this, as versus hanging out in an area where you go into the business district, people are overworked, they're unhappy, they're not getting enough sleep, yada yada yada. Their personality might already be hostile, and those are the types of people you'll come across in that realm. So I think approaching it from going into less populated areas, areas where it's promoting mental health, like where there's sunshine and trees and nature. I think that will actually change the reaction that we get from these people, or how they approach us when they're doing it, and it will probably open up the mood for more communication on the subject.
And speaking of like, I think that has a little bit to do with the genie effect that you were talking about. And what was funny was the very very first YouTube video I saw of yours was yours talking about how you were talking with your buddy about Chinese ladies, right? And then everywhere you go, there's Chinese ladies. Cause after I watched your YouTube video, it was the first getting second video I saw. I went out and I had to drive to Safeway to grab something right quick. And sure as shit, on every corner, like every block corner, all the way to that Safeway, Chinese lady with the hat.
Yeah, yeah. Well, see, that's the mimic effect, and this has to do with the technology that's being utilized. I know I'm under an aerial view. People are using drone space or satellite space, through some sort of corporate network to view me and my movements. And if I go into a certain neighborhood, they will pick people with certain distinctive physical features to come out and do the assignments. And that's a form of mimicking. So if I spend a lot of time talking to Chinese women, or going out and trying to find Chinese women, in the area I live at, there's not very many Chinese women. So that was a pretty big challenge to pick that as a mimic effect. But if I was to do that strenuously, there would be much more of an emphasis put on the stalking networks to recruit people who were of Chinese descent to participate to fulfill the mimic effect. As if I went out and I started hanging out with, mainly black women, they would use more black women to follow me around and gang stalk me. If it's white women, more white women. If it's Hispanic women, more Hispanic women. And if it's a certain specific person, then they will use that person more and use other people who look like that person. So that's the mimic effect, and technology is greatly utilized to do that. You won't believe the amount of surveillance and technology that is used to perfect these strategies, and the public is so uneducated. I mean, not to sound disrespectful, but we got to remember the public is at a third grade reading level. high school graduates, in the 1950s are equally are more qualified as PhDs in today's world. So the intelligence level and the ability for people to gather the information necessary to make educated decisions on what we're delivering to them has been greatly diminished. So as we're going through this, the public's looking at us describe this as we're delusional out of their own ignorance and lack of education on the subject, but we know exactly what's happening because we watch it happen every day. And so that's something you'll see more of, the mimicking effect, talking to certain individuals or even talking about them. You can spend 2 hours like Googling Chinese women and the artificial intelligence of the stalking network and the technicians and the liaisons that monitor, the stalking that happens, they will actually, start, start taking that energy that they see you investing into the subject of Chinese women and going out and finding people who fit that description to participate. It's kind of like what you put out. They're mirroring you, you know.
Yeah, they are mirroring us.
Right, right, right. And that gets back to that gets back to our perception. That gets back to the manipulation of perception, the manipulation of how people view their reality. And so I came up with the genie effect as a form of empowerment to people to be able to change how the gang stalking is approaching them. So, say I want to see more of a certain sort of thing, I will project that out by my interaction with the subject or by my interaction with the person or the object within my reality, and then it will be projected back to me in a certain sort of way. Now, the mimic effect is very complicated because there's mimics going on, and sometimes people don't know why they're happening. So there are mimics that are not recognizable by people. Then there's things that they just to do that they try on everybody. That's not actually a mimic. It's just something they're just doing to you, messing with you. So it takes a long time. I mean, not a long time, but sometimes it takes some experimentation to see, you know, kind of test the waters and figure out, what's going on because my mimics come like like about the same day. Sometimes it takes other people like 2 weeks, depending on the degree of the stalking. You know, it's fascinating.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Huh?
It would take longer for some people's, and it depends on what kind of stalking they got going on too.
Mhm. Yeah, it depends. Like, there's some people who get like death threats. There was a time where I was getting death threats. That was going on. There's different sorts of there's gang stalking where like people will come home and find a piece of newspaper rolled up with cigarette butts in it, and that's a form of intimidation. Like, hey, look, we're watching you. Kind of like somebody's been sitting outside watching your house smoking cigarettes all night. That type of thing. I've
Yeah,
heard.
it puts
Yeah,
that idea in your head.
right. They put that they implant. They put that seed in your mind, and so there's different forms of gang stalking that happens to people. There's identical things that many of us go through, pretty much all of us go through in some way, such as the brightening, the gaslighting, street theater, noise campaigns, but it is different in each person's case because we're all different, and this is psychological in a lot of ways. And so, you know, what do you think about street theater?
Um, I didn't know. Well, okay, I did notice it. Let me get that. Let me take that back. I did notice it at first, but I didn't notice the degree that it is until I started watching the videos. Because I feel like it's almost everyone. I almost feel like they put a ton of people on like a boat or something and shipped them right out to my area because this like town now is just flooded with people who did not live here or do not live here, you know. And like I was saying that one time I was talking to you, that lady that tried to beat me up at the bus stop was the one checking me into rehab. So they're using the same people for several different, you know, I guess roles in your life. And I'm just really, really curious is whether I've met anyone genuine at all in the last year and a half that wasn't quote unquote in on it or just doing street theater, you know? So I've kind of like I don't walk anywhere unless I absolutely have to, and I try to pretty much like stay away from people just because like I don't know if they're a part of it or not. And I don't really want to be like talking to anyone who's a part of it. That's been my mentality so far, up until I go pass out these flyers anyway.
Yeah, that's a big thing is you never know who's a part of it and what kind of way they're a part of it. But with the street theater that I've gotten, it's like really weird. It's like these little weird scenarios where they try to make me like they would have. I remember one time I told this story. I was seeing a woman for a couple months who was a part of the gang stalking, and she would literally be like street theater revolved around her even when she was with me, and we'd be like in her car, and I would be looking at a parking lot, and they'd have like a U-Haul truck in the parking lot, and they'd have another girl that looked like her with like some guy, and it was like a thing where they were trying to create the street theater like she was meeting some guy and moving away, and this would be something that would happen like 3 times a day or at least twice a day. And I would be like this is weird, like they're having street theater about her moving away, and I was just like it was stuff like that. It was weird, and they would just keep doing it like that thing that would be happening like twice a day or something. And
Oh, I
then
have a freaky example.
mhm.
I was on the bus one time, and there were these two. Okay, so there's the bus driver and these two gentlemen sitting right up near the front of the bus that looked very similar. They were dressed the same kind of haircut, stuff like that. It's just like one was Indian and one was Chinese, right? But they looked very similar. And so I'm sitting there, and the bus driver's having a conversation with just one of them, right? And the other guy's kind of just observing them, and then he's like taking notes and stuff like that. And then the voices in my head are like, okay, guys, switch. It's training day. And then the second dude starts talking to the bus driver, and they switch seats, you know. Not the bus driver, but the other two gentlemen, they switch seats. The other dude's sitting there, not taking notes, but holding the notebook and pad. And the new guy is having the exact same conversation with the bus driver that dude just had. It's like they were training for the street theater right in front of me. It tripped me out.
That's really weird. Is that is that the only time something like that's happened to you?
No, I mean I get street theater all the time. Like a lot of it just has to do with them talking shit about me in the back of the bus. That's most of it. Like most of it's just like straight up harassment or throwing Doritos at me or something. That's why I hate taking the bus. There's always weirdos on the bus, and it's always really exaggerated weirdness. Like, I remember like one time I was late at night. There was a female bus driver, and there was a Chinese lady with her three little girls, and they were all really young and like a baby or something. And they were acting out a scenario as to where the bus driver is driving
Right.
the Chinese lady
Yeah.
and the kids to a domestic violence shelter because she was acting, and she was doing a really bad job of it too, acting like she was running away from her husband. And so the bus driver sure as shit like goes off the route of the bus route to take this lady to a domestic violence shelter. And I'm the only other person on the bus besides these people, and I didn't realize that for a little while because I was up towards the front. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? I'm never gonna get to where I'm going on time. But I knew it was fake. Like I would feel for the lady if it was in any way real, but it was all an act. I think it was just to not get me to my destination on time or something. Throw off my night, something.
Do you think you're gonna be seeing more street theater when we meet, or maybe the same or less of it? How do you think they're gonna react to? I know we've
I
talked
think
about
it
this
might be
before.
crazy. I think they just might go bonkers. I don't know.
Right.
I think it might be
Well,
amped up a little bit.
well, it would take deranged people to pull this kind of stuff off anyway. So you never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, well, I'll have my video camera ready because I want to capture it for sure.
Right. What? Okay. Cool. Cool. That's really what's that relieving to hear. Now I was gonna ask you, with you recording the gang stalking, like what do you think would be the ultimate video clip to get? Would it be something like street theater, or what would be like the best thing? Because it's so easy to get the brightening and stuff. That's why I'm mainly asking.
I'm hoping to capture any and anything that I can. So I'm hoping to capture an example of almost everything. Like, see if I can get any voice to skull. Like, because I'm having this phenomenon where people around me react to my voice to skull. So I would really love to get on a video, like say, okay, the voices just told me that, and then have someone else react to it. And I would love to get street theater. I'd love to, there's a lot of videos out there about brightening, but I haven't filmed one of my own yet, so I want to do that, and like kind of get the phenomenon of any crossed reference street theater, any crossed referenced gang stalking that happens when me or you are together. I'm hoping to really make some good use out of this trip.
Mhm. Yeah, me too. Me too. You know what would be interesting? I wonder what would happen if we went to the Scientology headquarters. I mean, not the Scientology headquarters, but I'm sorry, but by a Scientology by a Scientology building. Would we be getting Scientology stock, do you think?
No doubt, 100%. I think we would.
Right, right, right. Because the Scientology stalking is very interesting because they do some things that the gang stalkers don't do because it's more directed at, you know, the person, hey, you left the church, why don't you come back to the church? If you don't come back, we're gonna mess with you. So, but they will be but the Scientologists nevertheless still would be gang stalking us. So that's fascinating. I almost want to go by a Scientology place just to see how they react, just to see if the stalking networks them into it.
Yeah, me
I know
too.
they
And
will.
I've actually had a run in with the Scientology people before. I've had a couple of run-ins with them in my lifetime. I want to see if they reference any of them also.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It's like I know they'll network into it, but it'd just be interesting. It'd be fascinating to see it. You know.
Yeah, that'd be it. That'd be it. It would almost be a hoot.
Mhm. Now, what about your phone? Like, you think they're gonna mess with your phone more? And once you get out here in person, like they're gonna be attacking your technology more? Or
Yeah, because it seems like anytime I do something that that they don't like, but they go after my phone first. So I might not even have a phone when I come back, but if this phone gets another virus and just crashes on me, or I'm just tired of being surveillanced on it all the time, or not being able to use it properly as I want to, I'm almost thinking about just getting a burner phone like every week. You know what I mean? Just keep
mhm.
getting burner phones. Fuck this. I'm almost to that point.
Right. Oh
They
yeah, get
just
a
turned
burner
my
phone.
Wi-Fi off. Oh, they
Huh?
just turned my Wi-Fi off, my Bluetooth on just now.
Oh, really?
Call didn't drop. Yeah.
The stalking network did that because I started talking about your phone. They were mimicking it. Huh? He- Stalking network did that.
I'm really surprised the call didn't drop.
Damn, the stalking network was mimicking me talking about your phone.
Yep.
Phones, they're stalking your phone. Isn't that crazy? Like they're stalking people's phones.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's not just people anymore, now it's phones.
Mhm.
And it's weird because like if I'm like, cause they know I love my music. I love music, and like they'll like pick out a song that like they'll just like all of a sudden YouTube's on my phone, it's playing and a song's playing that pertains to what's going on around me, and sometimes it really pisses me off. And sometimes I'm like, okay, that was funny, guys.
Mhm. Right, right. Absolutely, absolutely. You know, at this point, what I'd like to do is, I almost want to, do you have anything? Where do you think we're at in the interview? We got almost an hour down.
Yeah, like basically, like I'm hoping to start passing out those flyers tomorrow. So, I think I got enough information to kind of get a kickstart on that. And I do still encourage any listeners to have any information on anything we talk about, please weigh in, especially if it has to do with any um, any voice to skull things that you can pretty much put in layman's terms. And right now we're starting to talk about technology and how we're surveillance. Like I just discovered a couple of days ago from a buddy of mine that Siri and I think it's Google Assistant and I forget what the other ones are. Um, they we were like Jameel was already talking about how people eavesdrop on our microphones and listen to our surroundings like all the time, or they can intermittently, or maybe they even do all the time, like 24/7. Well, Siri does that as well. And if anyone has any information about where those recordings go, because it's supposedly for voice recognition purposes. Just the fireworks, guys. No one's being shot over here, okay?
Right, right,
Holy shit.
right. Well, no,
Holy
no. I'm concerned about the money bomb. I don't think we're getting enough money from people out there who could be given more money, and I don't know what to say about that. You know, people just aren't coming off those chips. You know, so I mean, there has to be. You know, uh, what can we like?
I'm
How
so
many
sorry.
flyers?
I just muted that all out. Like there was crazy fireworks and car alarms going off for a second. What was the question?
Right. I'm concerned about the money bomb. People just aren't, coming off the money like they should be to help us get the flyers going. Like, you could get a lot of flyers going for $20. Rachel?
Oh yeah. Every little bit helps. Every little bit for sure.
You could get a lot of you could get a
Have we have has the donations increased since we
no.
started talking about it more?
There's there the last donation we got was like $10 and that was 2 days ago. So this is a crisis situation, and realistically speaking, we need about $1,000 right now just to get right. I mean, just to, because we're talking about flyers, and we got to have emergency funds set aside for the next person who's going to kill themselves. Somebody out there is going to contact us who's suicidal, and this has happened to me before. A man contacted me and said he was going to kill himself, and before he was going to kill himself, he wanted to tell his story. I listened to him tell his story for 2 nights, me and 2 other women, and we both urged him not to kill himself. After the second night, we never heard from him again. Don't know what happened to him. He's probably dead. Had we had I hope not. I hope he's not dead. But had we had emergency funds set aside, we could have got him. We could have got him. Made sure that we knew he wasn't dead after the phone call. We could have got in touch with him and got him to meet in person and stuff. There's women, single women, who I've spoken to who've slit their wrist and taken medication and tried to kill themselves. So this emergency money bomb isn't about us sitting up here talking on the phone. It's about people not cutting their wrist. It's about people not going out and blowing their neighbor's head off. It's about people getting the attention and the respect and the dignity they deserve because no element of society can provide it for them. My God is trying to put something together for people using us as instruments to lay it down, and we already got it going. We just need some money. I mean, I'm concerned about the chips. I really am.
Yeah, that is a concern because we do have a couple of supporters who have brought up that, they're more than happy to contribute to anything that could save a life. And being able to help someone get out of the situation that they're in and educate them and either send them back or they can kick around for as long as they want to until they feel safe or have a direction. We'll help them, of course, find that direction and send them back with the tools that they need to go forward so that this kind of thing doesn't happen again.
We're doing this out of motel rooms and camping sites and stuff. And realistically speaking, we should have about 10 grand right now. We should have about 10 grand right now set aside for emergency funds for people to come get the 3-week course. And you're talking about plane tickets.
Yeah, those are plane tickets, Greyhound tickets.
Right, you're talking about plane tickets, Greyhound tickets, feeding people. People might not necessarily come with clothing. And we have to be diligent and be able to move around and get people to different sorts of places. And, $10,000 is a fabulous start off. I mean, anytime you're talking about human life, it's serious, and it's a hell of a gamble to risk losing a human life over a few dollars. Wouldn't you think? That's a pretty big gamble for people to take by not contributing. And you can see by how we demonstrate. We spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours online providing education. We do that anyway. We don't need money to do that. We do that just because it's the right thing to do. But right now, I'm just concerned about the chips, and the chips equal life. These are people's lives we're talking about. People's lives are in danger.
Yeah, that's a big concern.
It's a heavy concern, and it's a heavy burden to worry about it. If we had the kind of funds we needed, we wouldn't have to sit up having strategy meetings for 2 hours every night thinking about how we're going to get the next $50 or the next $100. That's time that we can network into saving people through our courses instead of worrying about how we're going to get enough money, for you to get here, or how we're going to get the room for the first week, or how we're going to get the sleeping bag and the potato chips and the popcorn and all that stuff. We want to be in a situation to where we know that we can save these people's lives without testing the waters. And we're putting the lecture hall together at some point in the future, and we're talking about a 3-week course, and this is going to be what do you call it? An investment. It's going to be an investment. So when the people get back to their communities, they're going to have 3 weeks of education on gang stalking and off the grid activity to help them go out and be the leaders they need to be to save other people who are going through it. This is this
and
one.
We also want to get to a point where we can pay it back too. Like if say someone's in a dire situation and they need a little bit of help, we can send it out their way too.
Well, and people, and one thing I want to bring up is people can contribute items. People can contribute their car. If somebody has like an old car they don't need anymore, they can sign over the title to one of us. Me and Rachel, they can sign the title over to me and you, Rachel, right now. If they have like an extra house or something, they can sign that over. We can bring education on gang stalking into an urban community where the house is at, And we're nomadic. We like to travel, and we need space available in every state because there's people being gang stalked in every state. And so if people have things they can contribute, clothing, it doesn't have to necessarily be money if they don't have money. People can just contribute, computers, things like that, and we'd like to talk to the people, of course, and congratulate them on their efforts, but there's a lot here that can be contributed, you know? Am I right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I
Right.
didn't even that it dawned on me about yeah, equipment too. Yeah, equipment is an excellent thing. Hell, even canned food, well, that's a good thing too.
Canned food.
Non-perishable
You,
food.
right, right. Our God needs every opportunity to help, and I mean, if people have like jewelry or items like that, we could have it appraised. We could have a watch appraised. We could have a ring appraised. We can go get that appraisal needed, and then we can trade that for the funds. I mean, this is saving people's lives. Why go to church and put money in a collection plate? When you can come to education and gang stalking off the grid courses and put the money in that's actually going to be doing God's work up front. I mean, I know there's a lot of Christians who are going to be sympathetic to the people being attacked by these demonic stalking networks. And so, instead of putting that money in a collection plate at church, why don't you put that money in education on gang stalking and, really serve your God, our God?
Agreed. Agreed.
Right. Right. And I mean, pop cans, I wouldn't mind for somebody who lived near me just to be like, "Hey, I got a couple $100 in pop cans or something. Here you go." Like, we're not below anything. If people have books they don't need anymore, we can use those books. I mean, we can make miracles out of anything. We're grateful for every penny we can get. We'll take anything. You know, bicycles.
Yep, yep.
Um, right. We'll take anything. So, you know, um,
Even if you don't think it has a use, we will find a use.
right, right. We'll find a use for anything. I mean, that's just the way it is. Um, and we'll do things for people. I mean, I think the geographic location is conflicting, but we would walk somebody's dog for them, or move some furniture around their home for them, or do a big task like help them put a swimming pool in, or the education and gang stalking group believes in hard work, and we would have people, 5, 6 people get together. We could help people do their lawns and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of positive opportunity that can come out of this.
Absolutely. Just like teenagers who will mow their parents' lawn for $10. I will mow a lawn for $10.
Right, right. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, if you find it willing, we can. I think we're gonna, you know, wish everybody the best. And if you have anything to add, what do you want to add anything? And
I just want to encourage people to keep sending any new information our ways, any ideas that we haven't discussed yet our way, or anything that you're interested in our way. And yeah, just another reminder, don't be afraid to reach out.
right, right. Don't be afraid to reach out. Okay. Well, hey, if you don't mind, I'm gonna call you right back after this.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. All right. Talk to you in a second.
Okay.